Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's barely able to connect now, looks like.
All right, let's begin now.
Okay.
Pramod, you are able to hear us?
Yeah, so good morning and namaste, everyone.
Yes.
Today, it's a great opportunity for us to interact on the various topics that we have been trying to discuss over the last month and a half. We have always discussed that the Vedic idea or the Vedic concept of lifestyle or the Vedic vision of a happy life is a more nature-driven and a more holistic approach to life itself. And we have been trying to cover as many topics as possible that are part of this larger understanding of the Vedic culture, which is now becoming more popular worldwide with natural way of living, organic way of doing things, a more holistic approach to life, a more collaborative way of doing things in a bigger way. So in that segment, we have always tried to work on various aspects of human life that also need now a newer template than the one that has been currently followed. Because we have seen that most ideas that have been followed over the last century or so now need a rehaul, now need a rethink. And in that category, I think the biggest aspect that today is getting a lot of attention is healthcare, the model of healthcare that we are following over the last 100+ years. And there is a larger understanding, a larger now thought process also building up that worldwide, many experts, many scientists, many healthcare visionaries are also now propounding that a newer approach to healthcare is going to become essential in the next century, because the one that is currently being followed in its piecemeal format is not being sustainable. It is not being effective the way it was supposed to be. And on a daily basis, we feel the challenges. On a daily basis, we feel the limitations of this current situation. And that is why we have been talking about a more holistic, more integrative way of doing things. And we have been reaching out to experts, not only in India, but worldwide, who are doing path-breaking work in this field. And today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce all of you to Dr. Vishwas Reddy, who is a stalwart in the field of integrative medicine and working from America. Originally, he's from Hyderabad, and he has been practicing veterinary medicine in California since 1984. And then he went to medical school in Chicago and got a degree in medicine. And also he went on and got a degree in natural therapy, naturopathy as well. And over the last many years, he has been practicing in California, USA, in the field of integrative medicine, blending modern science with natural medicine and alternative sciences, and creating a new wave or a new age of healthcare systems. So I invite Dr. Reddy to this discussion today. Namaste, Dr. Reddy.
Namaste, namaste. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv Wale, for inviting me. And thank you, Dr. Rajiv, and thanks, Pramod Mahindra, for joining this meeting. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you folks and spread this word around about this new modalities that you are talking about in
Yes.
medical care.
Of course, the two other gentlemen who are with us today are Dr. Rajiv and Mr. Pramod Mahendraji. Both are joining us from Hyderabad today. Dr. Rajiv, I don't think needs an introduction anymore. He has been with us over a couple of discussions and has actively helped us understand the scenario that developed with COVID, and also look beyond and explore the ideas of integrative medicine. And he has been a great help in making us understand this whole concept. And Mr. Pramod ji is also joining us from Hyderabad, who himself is an engineer by profession, but is a great follower of the new age healthcare model, and has been helping us reach out and understand this in a better way. So I welcome both of you gentlemen also to this talk today, sir.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Nice to be here.
So I would begin the discussion, Dr. Reddy, with you.
Yes.
I would request you to first help us understand the kind of work you're doing through your clinic in California, because I went through the website and
Yes.
it took me almost 40 minutes to read the whole website, sir. It's such an exhaustive work you're doing. Most of the words I had to go to Google and look up what that word really meant. You know, there's so much that you're doing out there that is really interesting and really very, very innovative also, and also I think cutting edge. If you ask me, the technologies that you're following are cutting edge. The sciences that you are now trying to introduce are the new age of research that is happening. So I would request you to please help us understand the work you're doing there and tell us a little bit about your own personal journey, sir.
Okay, so I was, like I said, born in Hyderabad, India, and then I moved to United States when I was 22 years old after being a veterinarian. And I went to school here at Mississippi State University and got my master's degree in nutrition.
Mhm.
And then after that, I did my small animal medicine and surgery training and moved to California from Chicago in 1983. So I've been practicing veterinary medicine, and veterinary medicine, as you know, is pretty close to nature. To be in communion with nature is in communion with animals and soil also. There is a sort of a spiritual belonging when you connect with animals, you know, they are very close to nature. So I practiced for almost 30 years, and then I wanted to expand my horizons and my consciousness into something new. I want to evolve myself from this animal world into see what is happening in the human world. I wanted to get some first-hand information rather than just reading books and things like that. So I ventured into medical school in Chicago at the age of 57. So I went and got my MD degree and passed all my medical licensing boards. After that, I was not too satisfied with what I was searching for, what I was looking for. My quest was not fulfilled. The world of drugs did not impress me. So I have seen the lot of side effects of the drugs, the way they were practicing in the hospitals, which I was doing better job in animals, doing more naturopathic modalities and getting the same amount of satisfaction and seeing the improvement in conditions, just like in all the diseases, just like in humans, they're also affecting the animals, you know. So then I decided with great perseverance and interest to pursue another 4 years of medical college at the Naturopathic Medical Institute in San Diego, in Bastille University. That's where I learned all the secrets of the human nature, how the biodynamics, how the human body works, what is the truth behind all these diseases, conditions, what are all the things that affect the human mind and human physical body also, as to what is the reason behind the cause of the diseases. Sometimes the cause of the cause has to be known in order to get to the root cause of the problem. Like it is said in Ayurveda, you have to look at the whole body in a holistic, organic manner rather than in bits and pieces. Our organs and tissues are not in isolation. They're all interconnected. So that's where I learned so many different modalities rather than just a drug-oriented approach. I learned about the microbiome, the environmental toxins, and then I learned about the food sensitivities, the hidden infections, what the kind of the role they play, and I learned about the hormonal imbalances, the gut-brain axis. These are all cutting-edge technologies run these days that are being talked about in scientific circles.
Yeah.
I learned about the nootropics. I learned about the nutrigenomics. According to your DNA, what you're supposed to eat. Not all people are supposed to eat everything what others are supposed to eat. There is a special way of eating also, according to our DNA. I learned about the energy medicine. I learned about homeopathy and a little bit about Ayurveda. Learned about orthomolecular medicine and nutraceuticals and also phytonutrients that are coming from the plants. So that's where I got the real picture of what happens within our human body and how differently how we are subjected to so many forces, not just one or two main, like it's not just simply germs and genes. Those are not just only two things as the modern medicine is teaching everybody. They say either genes or germs. So there's a lot more behind these other things that are subjected to in our body. That's where I learned most of the secrets, and that's what I've been practicing. I still practice veterinary medicine part-time and also do part-time human practice in integrative medicine. So that's where I am right now.
And so, what kind of a center do you have there? Do you work out of your own clinic, or how? What kind of a setup would you?
I still have my own animal hospital. Of course, I sold that about a year ago, but I still work there.
Mhm.
And I used to have my own integrative medical small clinic in the neighboring town. Our town is so small
Mhm.
that people are still not accepting the integrative medical idea. They are still grooved into the so-called allopathic medicine because they are being brainwashed in this particular part of the United States, especially in California in the desert.
Mhm.
They are still thinking about the allopathic medicine mostly.
Mhm.
So I used to go to the neighboring town where there's much greater population compared to my town.
Right.
But because of this COVID-19 set in as soon as they came from India in March, past March, so I just moved to my home and I see the patients in the home.
And so, like you have very beautifully introduced to us the whole concept of integrative medicine in your introductory talk. You also have mentioned that there is a resistance among people. I mean, is that because of improper information, or is it because of the resistance from the mainstream medical fraternity towards an integrative approach?
It is definitely an influence under the big pharma companies and medical doctors who have been taught the medicine in their medical school strictly on the allopathic model.
Mhm.
And this has such a sway on people that the way of getting medical care from the doctors, they have to go through certain governmental bureaucratic procedures, insurance and stuff like that. This is under the influence of them so badly that they're unable to dissociate from them and go seek other modalities. But the truth you cannot hide for too long. One day or the other, it will seek its own, like the water seeks its own level. So things will eventually will come up, and then people would come to know about it, and that's what's happening these days. For example, the alternative medicine now it seems has gotten up more amount of dollars are being spent in the United States in alternative medical care than in the regular medical care because they are seeing the results. It has become a result-oriented practice now. So the idea that everything does not have to have a random clinical trials and has to have an evidence, like they say, everything doesn't have to need to be an evidence-based medicine. Lack of evidence is not an evidence of absence.
Right.
Absence of evidence is not an evidence of absence.
Yeah.
So this is spreading now. It is the waves are spreading across the United States from coast to coast, and people are gaining access to this kind of medical care. It is mostly a cash-based practice. The government does not pay for it. The insurance does not pay for it. It is paid from the pockets, but they are spending it and they are getting the results and they are very happy about it.
Fantastic, sir. And also, I have seen that you are working towards creating awareness also amongst people about various issues.
Yes, we do promotions. I do talk about like this, what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I have local meetings, do some blogging and do some advertisements. And I talk to people, explain to them in their own terms what constitutes real health, what is the meaning of the integrative medicine. I tell them integrative medicine does not mean it's just an alternative medicine. The alternative medicine, either you choose this or the other, but not both. So I tell them this is not a complementary medicine either. Complementary medicine is something you complement to what you're practicing. I tell them integrative medicine is a synthesis, like the East-West synthesis in philosophy is conglomeration of all the ideas put together for the human optimization and the health benefit of the people. It is a relationship between the patient and the practitioners to promote their health to the best of everybody's ability to understand it in a more organic and holistic manner.
So could you please explain to us the difference between, say, an integrative medicine and a functional medicine concept?
Okay, in a functional medicine is a latecomer in the mostly practiced by allopathic people. Functional medicine is a tailor-made approach. Mostly they do not go out into the fields beyond their own view of thinking in the allopathic medicine. At the most, they go into nutrition, nutraceuticals, and things, hormones and stuff like that. But they do not venture into homeopathy and then Ayurveda and energy medicine and things like that. So functional medicine is a narrower aspect of the integrative medicine. Integrative medicine encompasses just about every modality that you can think of, whatever suits best for the patient.
Right.
Is the integrative. It does not mean it's a scattergun approach. It is what is, in other words, I coined a new word for this. This is based upon truth, a truth-based medicine as opposed to an evidence-based medicine, because an evidence-based medicine could be a false evidence. For example, cholesterol. Yes, the cholesterol is very high. You give statin drugs, cholesterol goes down. That sounds like an evidence-based medicine, but there is a problem. The cholesterol was never the problem to begin with. The cholesterol is there as to solve the inflammation in the endothelium of the arterioles.
Yeah.
So this is what I tell them. Evidence-based medicine is not exactly what we are looking after. We are looking after the truth-based medicine. What is the truth? Satyameva Jayate. The truth will win in the long run. That's
Right.
what I tell them.
Nice, nice,
Yeah.
very nice. So now I think what you have just said I can correlate from my Ayurvedic understanding so many commonalities between the approaches that modern research is taking in the concepts of Ayurveda as were explained by the rishis 5,000 years ago. The one biggest, I think, commonality that I see is the new understanding of the gut-brain axis, or the importance of your gut health being so
Yes.
high now, which was not an understanding of the medical fraternity maybe 20 years ago. But now I think research has also reached to that stage, because
Yes.
in Ayurveda we say when your digestive system is intact, your entire health system remains, all your other important systems also remain healthy, and your gut
Absolutely.
systems fails and the entire system collapses. This has been an Ayurvedic understanding for a long time. So could you help us understand that concept, sir, from the modern
Yes.
research perspective?
Yeah, this is called this emerging science. It is still in the infant stages, and this is called the gut brain, the gut health you're talking about is
Yeah.
the microbiome, the
Yeah.
microbiomics, which means the bacteria. We are only 10% of what we are. 90% of our DNA is not us. It is these bacteria in the colon and the gut that control everything: our mood, our hormones, our interactions, our neural connections, and inflammatory cytokines, and all these immune system is all enclosed in our chambers of our intestines. So that's a very powerful modality to seek the help of these probiotics in trying to solve our problems. So when it's 90% of the DNA is not our own DNA, you can well imagine the kind of role they play in. So all these are, now they are saying autoimmune conditions like a rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis and mental depression and hormonal imbalance are all connected to the microbiome, this bacteria. Certain bacteria play a role in certain diseases, and certain bacteria play a role in suppressing the diseases also. There's a constant interplay of forces, action going on between these species of thousands and thousands of species of bacteria, to the point where you probably know now there is what is called as a fecal transplantation. You must have heard FMT. Yeah, so they are using, this was the old concept from China 10,000 years ago.
Yes.
They used to observe people with sickness, and for example, diarrhea, gastrointestinal problem. So they figured if they eat the feces from a regular normal person, that would improve. Yes, they did. Same thing is happening now with Clostridium difficile infection, where it's a deadly toxemia condition caused by promotion of this too much antibiotics. And when they give the FMT, fecal transplantation, it recovers within 24 hours, a dramatic improvement you can see in that condition. Yeah, it's called Clostridium difficile.
So I'll just try and elaborate what I read in my Ayurvedic text. So just correct me if I'm wrong. The Ayurveda text also says that your digestive health has a direct impact on your mental health. That's what we have been learned to believe, that your mental health is not dependent on your brain alone. On the contrary, the brain is a location where the mind resides to show its existence. But the mind has a pan body presence, and your gut health is what decides the health of the mind, and vice versa. So mental health also decides your gut health, and your gut health also decides your mental health. This connection, could you elaborate, sir, from the current perspective?
Well, what I know is there are certain neural connections. Number one, the immune system that tries to protect us, the so-called immune system in the gut, GALT, gut-associated lymphoid tissue, is the biggest immune organ we have in our body. It clears within one day what our entire body clears, and the other immune organs clear in 1 year. That's how powerful it is. And this so-called the enzymes and the hormones that are secreted from our gut intestinal tract are directly connected in the neural pathway to the brain. And that's how they are influencing our mood, our behavior, and our neurotransmitters and things like that. That's what you're talking about. Yes, I do understand that it's a very vast subject, but but the basic assumption is that the gut has got a bigger role to play in the neural connection pathways, besides just the central nervous system and the spinal cord and the brain.
Exactly. Why I say this is because I remember discussing the concept of anxiety and mental depression with one of our senior Ayurvedic Vaidyas. He passed away a few years ago, and he patiently heard me out for 15 minutes. I explained to him the rising threat of mental illness and the fact that depression is now going to become such a huge issue globally, to the fact that maybe antidepressants are going to now become the most sold drug on the planet soon. So I was just explaining to him the idea, and then he heard me out patiently, and he said, what are these drugs meant to do? I said, they are meant to calm the brain in a way, you know. And he said, but you're looking in the wrong direction. The location you should be looking at is your gut health, because most of the people, he said, are going to have high acidic levels in their body. And he said, if you go and check that, you might find that most people who are complaining of depression or allied disorders are going to have a high acidic content, which is in the Ayurvedic perspective called as the Pitta concept, where the Pitta goes very high. And he said, this is all Pitta disorders. These are all acidity disorders that you need to look at. And I think now when you talk about this, I can slowly correlate with what he was saying. And now also maybe I could request you to explain to us the concept of inflammation, sir, because that is what I think he was pointing towards, that this concept of high pitta causing inflammation in the body is leading to disorders in a big way.
Yeah, the inflammation is the modern malady. I'm telling you, this is causing the problems in every system and organ in our body. This inflammation is due to inflammatory cytokines and interleukins, but what is causing it is this environmental exposure to toxins is the number one culprit. We have about 140 to 160 chemicals and toxins in our body, in average American here, out of which they say about 40 to 50 are carcinogenic. So you can imagine what these environmental toxins are doing it. Our pesticides, our glyphosides, our plants and vegetables and the fruits, they're all sprayed with toxic chemicals. And these are all responsible for the inflammatory reaction. And this is what's causing the basic root cause of the problem that we are facing these days. For example, the endothelium of the arterioles is the inflammation, the main cause, which is the disrupting the glycocalyx, the endothelium before the endothelium, the glycocalyx. So the charges of the glycocalyx, the glycosaminoglycans, glucosaminoglycans and stuff like that, they are being disturbed at the basement membrane in the kidney and things like that. So this disruption is what's causing, as the protective mechanism, the cholesterol goes in there and tries to cement the blood vessels, and people think it is the cholesterol that is causing the blockage. It's not the cholesterol, it's the basic underlying problem is the inflammation. This inflammation is the root cause, and that's what we need to solve by keeping away from these toxins. The detoxification process is the number one thing that you need in order to get rid of this inflammation in the body.
And then what could be the symptoms that you could feel that somebody has, maybe what are the stages of where a person can identify inflammation in his or her body?
I would not say any particular symptom for that. There could be, it depends upon what tissue is being manifested in, where it is happening. In the arterioles, it is of course the arteriosclerosis. In the brain, you have this cardiovascular anomalies. In the eye, your classic, the so-called your cataract problems. And in the kidneys, the mitochondrial problems. And the heart, same thing with the heart, mitochondria and the kidneys are the major organs with the CoQ10 being the main pumping organs over there in the heart. They are being disrupted by the so-called the statin drugs, and this is all what's causing the inflammation there.
And I also had read an article that was saying that maybe the so-called modern lifestyle that is now been driven by healthcare fads rather than healthcare facts is adding to this problem. What would you say on that?
The healthcare fads you're talking about, the diet and stuff like that?
Yes, sir. Every day you have a new fad.
Yeah, these are all the selfish interested people, profiteering people trying to come up with these drug companies and drinking health drink companies. They say drink this and drink that. They put additives in there. They're trying to hide the name of the sugars. They call it agave syrup. They call it so many different names, maltodextrin or corn syrup, instead of high fructose corn syrup, instead of just calling it a sugar. They're trying to mislead people, and this is what's causing the severe inflammation. Besides the environmental toxins, food is the number one, second organ, second problem in our inflammatory problems facing in America today. Food is the number one problem.
Food is a
It's
major.
not-
Yeah. I mean, every day, every other week or every other month, you have some new concept about some new healthcare idea that is being thrown around as the most, new age idea of health. And everything somehow seems to revolve around two things: making you thin and making you look young. Nobody's talking about making you healthy and making you, live a healthier, longer life.
Yeah.
What would you say on that, sir?
Yeah, either making you look lose weight, looking better, stuff like that, or bringing the numbers down. They play a number game. Your blood pressure is so and so. Let's bring it down. To suppress the symptoms, just bring the numbers down. The glucose, bring it down to so and so level. That's not going to stop the progression of diabetes. So this is what they are doing, either with the pills or with the so-called natural supplements, the phony supplements they are bringing in. They're not looking at the whole organism as a whole, completely. They are looking at bits and pieces of our body, our tissue, and they are saying, yes, we can do this, we can do that. That's what's causing the problem here. It's all, it's like a bandage. It's not a real solution to any problem. So this is what the definitely misleading thing that's going around these days.
And you also pointed on the diet being a very crucial part of the issue, because now we are not only facing food that is either pesticide laden or is genetically modified, but you also have food that is somehow now full of straight out poison. I mean, like you said, high fructose corn syrup, for instance, and all the other additives that they put to food basically have turned a lot of the food that is available in supermarkets towards unedible. I mean, most of the food that is sold in the pre-packaged, pre-cooked category is actually unedible for human consumption. I mean, they're not meant for human consumption, but they're sold in tons every day, sir. Yeah,
this is absolutely very, very serious point you are bringing up. This is a worldwide problem. I'm telling you, in India especially, this is even worse because it's unregulated, uncontrolled. Anybody can do anything over there. The way they spray pesticides. Years ago, I was reading in a magazine that the highest amount of toxins in the breast milk are found in Andhra women. So you can well imagine how they are being exposed to these toxins. That's where the rising of the breast cancers takes place, because the breast is a concentrating organ, just like the udder is a concentrating organ for the milk of the cow. So this is why our milk is completely contaminated, because they are eating pesticide-laden grass and food additives, and they call it organic milk in India. I could not believe it. Organic ghee, not organic, is completely filled with the toxins. So this is, for example, in America we have a thing called Dirty Dozen fruits, Apples are on the top on the list. Strawberries are on the second on the list. These are called a dirty dozen. Means these are the 10 fruits that are the highest amount of pesticides sprayed on them. Grapes is one of them. Especially in India, the grapes are highly laden with pesticides and all these drugs and chemicals and stuff like that. So it's very dangerous. Not to mention in India, they use the ripening products. At least they don't use it in America. They use in India ripening things. So that is horrible. In India, in America, they use glyphosate. Glyphosate is used to hasten the ripening process. The way in the wheat fields, they don't use sometimes to as a weed killer, the glyphosate, but they just before the harvesting season, they spray glyphosate. And I was surprised to hear that the reason why they use that is to hasten the final the harvesting process. They use glyphosate. Glyphosate is extremely dangerous. It is implicated in neurological disorders, digestive disorders, and almost every other disease.
Why I'm asking you this is because many times people who come to even our clinic, many times now that there is health awareness is growing because of the media is now talking about it in a big way. But many times people come, they say, oh, I have suddenly developed a high blood pressure, but I've been living a very healthy life. I sleep on time, I eat the right kind of food, I do enough exercises, but I still am becoming ill. And that is something that people complain of, always that I have not done anything wrong, but somehow I'm still becoming ill. And the people who are already ill complain that I'm becoming more ill, that it's getting worse for me because of the medicines that I'm taking. So both ends of the spectrum seem to be suffering. People who are supposedly living a healthy life are also becoming ill. People who are leading an unhealthy life, becoming ill, are getting more ill. So this whole situation just keeps getting worse.
It has become a vicious circle now. Now there is another twist to this so-called food problem. There's a thing called food sensitivity problems. We have IgE, which is a food allergy. We have IG, the food intolerance, enzymatic process. For example, people cannot take lactose because of intolerance. Between the two, there is another one thing called IgG, which the medical doctors here do not believe it. This is the problem of sensitivity, which is if you eat something today, it takes 3-4 days before you manifest some problems in your system, like headache, nausea, and insomnia, and things like that. This is due to IgG. About 40 to 50% of the population have food sensitivity problems due to one thing or the other. It could be a minute ingredient, or it could be a major nutrient. So this is another problem that is disrupting and causing the inflammation in the digestive tract where the food is eaten, and that inflammation is leading to all other manifestations in the body: blood pressure, high blood pressure, glucose, and things like that.
And I think this is where I think the correlation between food, that way we look at it, because for instance, when Ayurvedic perspective, I look at food, I look at it that maybe X food that you have eaten 2 months ago is causing something to you now. But when you explain that to the patient in front of you, they don't seem to understand that, because they don't understand that something I've eaten last week could now cause me a problem today. But this is how the body develops a reaction to anything that is ingested into the body. It's something that modern science hasn't explained, modern education is not also explaining, and the media doesn't also seem to focus on it. That is why I think there's a huge information gap there between people's dietary habits and their healthcare status. And I think that is where integrative medicine can come in and play a very big role, sir.
Yes, this is how we do it. Testing is a sophisticated testing called IgG testing, and that will determine what the foods are being exposed to, the particular antigen, and causing this high IgG elevation, and that will disrupt the microbiome. And that microbiome starts a chain reaction, causing disruptions in other organs in the body. So this you have to explain to them in a very simplistic manner as much as possible, the concept of the IgG, what it does, it is different from allergy and things like that.
And also I think, like I said, it's a great learning experience for me as well. Every moment you're talking, it's helping me understand Ayurveda better, because here in Ayurveda, we have a concept called as the Rutucharya, which means seasonal lifestyles and daily lifestyle as well, which are tailor-made to each individual's constitution, each individual's body structure, and it can't be a generalized idea. I mean, a Prakriti, as we are calling it, the human Prakriti or human constitution, varies from individual to individual, and that individual then has to sit with the Vaidya to understand the Prakriti and then follow a diet and lifestyle suitable for that particular constitution that changes not only from day of the month, but also from the month of the year. I mean, it changes from season to season as well. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
That's even more sophisticated than the Western thinking. Here we call it nutrigenomics.
Yes, sir.
That means you have to eat according to your genes, according to your blood groups. You just cannot eat because what other people are eating at home. Everything is different. So this nutrigenomics, we do certain testings to see where this food is causing the issue in your genes by doing a test called the SNP, SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. These genes will tell us which genes are being causing the problem in proper assimilation in the utilization of the food. And once we know which genes is causing the problem, we can override the genes by changing the diet. There's such an amazing concept that people do not understand how you can override the genes so easily.
Because up until now, I think they thought that the genetic structure of the body was a fixed code that you inherit at the time of birth, and that most of it stays with you throughout your life, and then a large part of it you pass on to the next generation. That was the current understanding of the average person out there about genetic structure and the genes and the DNA. But with, I think, the new age concepts like epigenetics, that is changing in a big way, and maybe also the mindsets are now shifting.
Yeah, it's not the genes, it's the epigenetics, it's about the genes. So a gene is having a genetic disease is having having a loaded gun. It won't do nothing to you. And epigenetics is pulling the trigger. So that's what it is. If you pull the trigger, that's when the damage occurs. So with genetics, that's not a problem. So this is a very common misunderstanding. People think diabetes in a family running from grandpa to grandson is because of genetics. It's epigenetics. So once you remove the epigenetic influences, the diseases get resolved. That's a major problem player these days.
And I think maybe I'm stretching it too far, but this is the concept of karma that we have also explained, that you get a certain set of genetic issues or probably genetic problems from your parents, but a large part of it you can undo through a right lifestyle, through a right diet and lifestyle. And that is the concept that we in Ayurveda used as karma-based healthcare, because you inherit a certain problem, but you can undo it through your karma, through my lifestyle. I can rewrite my coding in a big way. Can you explain that, sir? Our people would love to understand that.
Yeah, this is what I just said. You can override the genes. If you provide the substrate to the genes in proper way, then you can override the influence of the genes. The epigenetics is what is causing the problem. For example, the methylation defect. Some people cannot take folate because they have the MTHFR defect. So if you give them the methylfolate, then that can be used into the formation of DNA and RNA. Right. So this is what is important. It is not the genes, it is the epigenetics. The genes can be overridden. So that's not the problem. So that is unfortunate for some women with the BRCA gene in the breast cancer. They think if they remove the cancer on the left breast, now they have to remove the right good one too, because that's prone to get a cancer in the future. That is not true. If you change her epigenetic structure and a holistic lifestyle, then this will prevent that from happening in her breast, a cancer.
So in a simplistic term, if I have to understand from a layman's perspective, like from an average person to understand, that I might be having a particular disease probably inherited from my family background. Maybe my parents are diabetics and I have a high risk of being a diabetic. Maybe it is part of my genetic coding as well. But with my current lifestyle, with a positive lifestyle, a positive frame of the mind, I can undo that, and chances of me passing it on to my children also are reduced. Is that right?
Exactly, absolutely right. That's what I just said. The epigenetics you can change. You can change your genes. Once you change your epigenetic influences, then the problem will be changed. You're not pulling the trigger, so there's no problem.
And from what I gather from what you have explained to us over the last 30 minutes, it's the food that you are eating, is the environment that you are living in, that is not only affecting your current state of health, but it's also going to affect your long-term state of health. add to that the concept of mind being a major role, playing a major role in this. Is that something that also you would love to expound upon?
Yes, let me tell you, there is a few things here. There's like a mnemonic here, like a what it says, FINDSET, find set. So all these our problems, health problems, are related to F stands for food sensitivities, like I was discussing before. The I stands for hidden infections. We have herpes virus, Epstein-Barr virus, hundreds and hundreds of viruses we have hidden in our bodies. The N stands for the nutrigenomics. We have to eat according to our diet. The SNPs I'm talking about, those all comes under nutrigenomics. The D is the dysbiosis in our intestines. The S stands for the stress, mental, emotional, physical stress. And then the E stands for the endocrine influence, hormonal imbalances, testosterone, pituitary hormones, adrenal hormones, and stuff like that. T stands for the toxins, how you find detoxify, eliminate the toxins. If you do all these things in your patients in a systematic, organized manner, more than likely they will get rid of their problem.
And this is excellent concept, sir. I mean, this is something that I think I'm getting at least 50 or 60 comments I have currently on your talk, and everybody saying that this is an eye opener, because majority individuals are not aware why they are ill or how they can become ill by following the lifestyle that they're living in. Because most of the times, you are aware that when we are living as a family, we cook a normal amount of meal, we all share that meal, we live a standardized lifestyle today, a boxed in lifestyle, a boxed job structure, a whole social structure that is meant to keep you in a certain boxed lifestyle template. And that is adding so much pressure on individuals that healthcare has become almost a chance nowadays. You can't predict anything for you. You can't even create health for you. It is something that has to happen by chance nowadays. And all the concepts that you are explaining to people are going to be a big eye-opener for many people in their lives. And this is really fantastic information. Even if from a doctor's perspective, the fact that you're adding so much, throwing so much modern scientific light on this ancient Ayurvedic concepts is a great learning experience even for me. And I'm really personally also very happy today to hear all of this information. I've read about it for sure. I've gone through articles, I've read about it online, but to hear from an expert, it adds a whole different value to it.
Yes, people need to take a proactive approach. It starts from cooking food at home. Your food ingredients in India especially, they're all contaminated. The spices, the major ingredients, the oil. Oil is the first thing that you need to worry about. The vegetable oils are highly highly pro-inflammatory. They have more omega-6 than omega-3. You need vegetable oil, not vegetable oil, but avocado oil, olive oil, or even ghee. Ghee is the fundamental thing that is required for your health now. Now the new concept is the higher the cholesterol, the better it is. The more the ghee, the better it is. So what do you need to do?
New understanding, is it? Sorry to break it. Is this can you repeat that, sir?
The new thing that's going around in the United States now, the higher the saturated fat, the higher the ghee, the better it is. The lower the cholesterol in the body, the worse the problem is. This has been driven to the point to such an extent that this so-called low-fat thing that it is causing more problems in Alzheimer's, memory problems, neurological problems, etc. So the ghee is the most saturated, stable thing that everybody should use. It has got phosphatidylcholine, lecithin, inositol, all the supplement, all the things that are required in the brain for the brain cells, for the neurons to act properly. That's why Japanese scientists put ghee in baby food, not in India, but they do in Japan. So the baby sleeps well and she's in a good, very sound sleep, and they develop well mentally and physically. So ghee is the fundamental thing. Now, let me tell you something about how to prepare the food. That's even important. Like you said, Ayurveda plays a big role there. Your Teflon coated pan is highly toxic and carcinogenic. People do not know that. The first thing you need to do is to get rid of your Teflon coated, so-called smooth pan or whatever you can, non-stick coating pan. You need to get rid of that and use iron skillet or steel, something like that, but not Teflon coated. The second thing you do is the plastic bottles that you use. In spite of what the government is telling you, the BPAs in the plastic bottle are okay. No, they are not. They are highly toxic substances are getting into your body. And these persistent organic pollutants, POPs, in the environment, the DDT and all the old-time drugs, even the modern pesticides, these are acting like endocrine disruptors. So in the second medical school that I went to, I was shocked to learn that diabetes has nothing to do with the pancreas, insulin, glucose, and all that stuff nonsense. What he told me, the world famous professor, Professor Pizzorno, the diabetes started in the world the day to the exact week or the month when the POP, the persistent organic pollutants, toxins started in the environment. That's when the diabetes took the same curve as the use of the curve of these toxic chemicals. Because these pollutants, organic things in the environment, your pollution from the bus, motorcycles and cars, and what you are drinking and eating from these plastic bottles, your Teflon coated pants and stuff like that, these go into the body and they act like endocrine disruptors. They are disrupting your hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid, and they are playing havoc in the body. That's causing the problem with diabetes, hypothyroidism, autoimmune diseases, and things like that.
So, so you are saying whatever we have understood so far, whatever been told so far, is now has to be rewritten in such a big way, sir?
What you have learned so far has to be unlearned. The unlearning itself is a new learning.
This is really big, sir. This is something that people need to hear more, because the whole country, the whole world is right now subjected to chemical pharmaceuticals, and most of the world is getting more sicker. I mean, I have hundreds of patients that I work with on a daily basis, and every day I see that I should tell them, it comes to my heart that I should tell them that you should need to go off these chemicals, but there is not enough understanding for us to do that. But I think now with this new information that you're providing, it seems mandatory that people need to change lifestyle in a big way, sir.
It is a very big science. But we need to make it as simple as possible to explain to people in simple terms how to change their way of life and follow a holistic method of cooking and eating and things like that, exercise and stuff like that. But let's talk about something about exercise now. People used to think running, jogging first thing in the morning is the best thing. Now that is not. Going back to the Vedas and the yoga, what the German scientists have discovered, it is the stretching of the body and the muscles. It stretches the fascia. The fascia is the outer covering of the muscles. So in the medical school, they teach you fascia just in one paragraph, saying that the fascia is the outer coating of the muscles. At the most, they have a fascia syndrome. Whenever there is a broken bone, they put a cast on. That's called a fascial compartmental syndrome. Now the German scientists have discovered this fascia covering is the most central point in people's metabolic disturbances, endocrine disturbances, depression, pain, endorphins, and things like that is caused by the fascia being attached to the muscles and not being allowed to move around freely. It's by stretching, which is the part of the yoga, then the body's lymphatic system and everything moves so smoothly, it solves many of these problems.
So if I recollect a little bit of what you have said, the food you are eating, probably the water we are drinking, the air we are breathing in is basically making us more ill, and we don't have to do anything physically to get ill nowadays. Just by doing these things, we are going to become ill.
We are completely in an environment, yes. Unless you adopt a lifestyle, how to get away from this kind of stuff, then your inevitable consequence, a person will go through the changes that are happening in the human bodies these days, especially cancer, mostly metabolic disturbances, chronic diseases. So this is what's causing the problem. These problems are easy to solve. Just stay away from these inflicting agents, then you'll be fine. That's what the simple message is here.
Because why I'm asking you this is because the biggest argument that probably so-called evidence-based medicine that has against alternative sciences is that, okay, this is we challenge you to cure cancer. Can you cure cancer? Can you cure diabetes? Can you cure heart disease? And when all of the ancient sciences tend to go through their books again, and then see that we don't have even mention of these concepts because the lifestyles that they have propounded, the ideas of the food, ideas of exercise that the ancient sciences have propounded usually don't lead to these problems. That's why they never led to these problems. That's why they never had a solution for such a problem.
That's
And
why they
that's
never
why the challenge-
labeled these diseases. They did not go by labeling problems and solving the problem on the labels. They
Right.
went for the holistic overall health. So, for example, look at this so-called orthomolecular medicine. For example, in COVID-19, believe it or not, you can prevent a COVID-19 infection very easily by, first thing is vitamin D. If you get 10,000 units of vitamin D, that will stop you from getting COVID-19 infection. How? Vitamin D is got certain things in it. It blocks the virus from attaching to the ACE2 receptor, number one. Vitamin D increases the Th1 and Th2 immune systems. Vitamin D has got defensins and cathepsidins. These are two things within it that will prevent the bacterial, fungal, viral infections. It's got so many things like this. So in order to get your vitamin D, you need to expose to at least 45 minutes between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and the UVB light it's called, with with three quarters of your body exposed to the sunlight. Most people cannot do that these days. So what they do, at least they have to do, is take vitamin D3, 10,000 units, and your body will be completely better. It can cure 100% of the multiple sclerosis. People who are in the wheelchairs, completely in wheelchair with multiple sclerosis, can be reversed to walk again with vitamin D 10,000 units. Rheumatoid arthritis can be completely changed. Autism can be completely 100% changed with the vitamin D alone. So that's how powerful it is. Your TB, multiple drug-resistant TB in India now are being solved in conjunction with 10,000 high doses of vitamin D. Problem is solved.
Fantastic. And I think exposure to sun, like what is called as Surya Namaskar or something like in the yogic
That's
practice,
another concept in Ayurveda, yes.
is something that we have always propounded. But currently we are made to stay indoors, shielding us away from sunlight. I mean, we are supposedly to stay inside and fight infections, miraculously not exposing us to fresh sunlight or fresh air out there.
Yes. See, the vitamin D, the biggest misconception is they call it a vitamin. Vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. Every 10 trillion cells of our body have receptor for that vitamin. Whenever you take vitamin, you must take vitamin K2. What the K2 does, it all takes the calcium that is building up in our bloodstream because of vitamin D, it puts it back into the bones, and it will solve the joint problem, osteoporosis, arthritis problems are completely solved by vitamin K2. So this is what's called the orthomolecular medicine. Simple things. But taking, for example, zinc, if you take zinc 30 milligrams, this is what the zinc does. It prevents the enzyme. The COVID-19 virus needs an enzyme. It's called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So what the zinc does, it prevents the virus from multiplying because it blocks this enzymatic activity. So that's why you take vitamin zinc. And then vitamin A, it prevents the attachment of the virus to the cell. So if you do all these things, then you are fine. So everybody is deficient in vitamin D, and 90% of the population is deficient in magnesium. That's another thing. In India, almost 99, I would say 100% of the people are deficient in magnesium. So if you take magnesium, it will change completely their body, the health problems, especially neural problems, nervous problems, and the mental issues and things like that, because it is required for 360 enzymatic reactions in the cell are dependent on magnesium. And you can well imagine 100% of the population is deficient in magnesium. So what it is doing to their bodies.
Because there was a lot of talk going around that there is this virus that we are worried about, this pandemic that we are being safe by staying indoors, but there is no talk about building up immunity, because apparently modern science doesn't have too much to add on that front other than eat healthy food. But if there is no healthy food out there, what are we supposed to do? I mean, if the food that we are eating is full of pesticide, what kind of health are we going to build up, and what kind of protection do we have against the virus? So what you are saying actually is something that the world needs to hear more of now, because everything right now is about building up the immunity.
Exactly. So it's not the COVID virus 19 that's not to be blamed. You don't need a vaccine. You don't need a treatment. This is ridiculously concept that these pharma companies are pushing.
Yeah.
The defect is within us. The problem is inside, not outside. If you build up your immune system, it will not happen. Scientists did research. People who have been affected in Italy and China and other countries, all those people were deficient in vitamin D. So for example, Somalians, the Africans, they cover their whole body completely, these Muslim people, and they are the worst affected people on the earth because they do not have any exposure to sunlight and they are deficient in vitamin D and their mortality is very high.
Any other comment on the current COVID pandemic, sir? Any particular viewpoint you could help
Yes,
us understand?
one other thing is the so-called cell phones or 5G, these cell towers and stuff like that. They are disrupting the melatonin content in our bodies. When young children are mostly resistant to this COVID-19 infections, the reason as when they are younger and then youthful stage, their melatonin levels are high. As they get older, their melatonin levels goes low and they are very susceptible, highly susceptible to the COVID-19 virus. There's another twist to this. As the cell towers are close to you, your melatonin content even goes down. It directly affects the melatonin from the cell towers, 5G, and that's what's causing the mortality in people when they are older people or people who are living close to the 5G towers.
So what do you think is the next 2 years for humanity living with COVID, sir? What do you think is going to happen? Any thoughts there?
Unless somebody promotes this so-called enhancement of the immune system, it is going to be devastating. These people are talking about vaccines. Vaccines is not going to be the solving the problem because the virus will change its genetic strain. And just like flu, every year they come up with a new strain of the flu virus vaccine. So they have to keep doing this. So at one time or the other, they have to learn these truths and prevent them from being attacked by this virus. It's up to them to learn all these things in a hard way, but this is going to be a pretty persistent pandemic. They are suspecting it's going to be there forever. They're not thinking that this is going to go away anytime soon.
Because most of the people, I think worldwide, were thinking that the end of the lockdown is going to be end of the pandemic, end of the virus. But now I think more agencies are talking about that you have to now learn to live with corona the way you have learned to live with HIV and take all the precautions here on forward. I mean, all the wearing of the face mask and all of that would become like a mandatory thing going forward.
Exactly. The handshake is gone. They're back to namaste now. They are saying no more handshakes. So things like that have changed now. So socially, all these distancing, keep a distance of 6 feet and stuff. And yes, there is going to be a problem. You have to live with it. Our life is not going to be the same all over again. So things have to be made. Some new changes have to be made sooner or later.
And how long do you think will this persist, sir?
They are thinking this is going to be persistent for a long period of time. Even if the lockdown is lifted, there will be more casualties. And of course, they are expecting there could be a herd immunity, which might take longer than that's what they are saying, thinking, So this is what the problem is.
And then now I would like to ask you to help us understand how can we undo all of these problems on an average person's life? How can we fight inflammation? How can we, eat more healthier food? What kind of food? Maybe is organic the way forward? Is natural food the way forward? Could you elaborate on that?
The first thing is you need to turn inward. You need to have some eagerness, anxiousness to learn a few things. That's number one. You want to get yourself better. Nobody should force you to get better. One should have an inner urge to get better. The first thing to do is the food. That's the number one thing. You have to grow your own food. Believe it or not, even a city-dwelling people in their porch or whatever, they can grow food among them for themselves for at least a family of 1 or 2. You either do that or you go buy some organic certified food, or if you unable to buy that, just buy any food and then wash it thoroughly with some baking soda that seems to get rid of all the toxins in running water. So that's what you do. So inculcate this habit of cooking a holistic food, holistic ingredients and spices, the oils I told you, the dishes to do it, even the dishwashing liquids and stuff like that, they are contaminated. So do that from the kitchen, start from the kitchen. Your holistic building up of your immune system starts from there. And then the environment, whenever you go out, try not to get into this polluted areas, exposed to this bus car traffic in the roads, and air conditioners and things like that. Stay away from that. And the cosmetics, especially in women, that's the number one problem in women is the cosmetics. They have some serious problems, exposed to most of them are made in China. Their lipstick, their I think eyelash treatment they do to their faces, everything, and the hair coloring things, they're highly toxic. They should stay away from this as much as possible. They should use natural products to do their so-called the cosmetic effects, aesthetics and stuff like that. Okay, and then their water, I told you how to drink the water as much as possible. These are all contaminated waters too. Their way to purify their water, that's good. And let's see, and then the vitamins, if nothing else, I know they cannot expose to themselves to sunlight 30-40 minutes a day, at least take vitamin D, the nutraceutical therapy, this is what's called. All the macronutrients and micronutrients, they should make sure they are getting enough of all that, the basic vitamin nutrients. That's very important.
And
The other thing they forget.
Sorry, go ahead, sir.
The other thing they forget is they think carbohydrate, protein, and fat are the main ingredients, but then they forget the fourth thing is the fiber that is absolutely lacking in Indian people these days. In the olden days, they used to eat like 40 to 50 grams of fiber. Now they are not even eating 10 to 15, 20 grams of fiber. So they need to be told what is the fiber and how to eat fiber. The more fiber it is, the better it is. So at least they should take weekly supplements of psyllium, they call it a Isabgol in India, Hyderabad. They call it psyllium. They should take those fiber supplements every week, at least on a weekly basis.
Because so, even in a country like India, where we believe that the Indian diet of dal, chawal, roti, sabzi, and all of that is like a balanced diet. But more and more people are now understanding that A, the nutritional values of these ingredients have dropped. B, that they could be also full of a lot of toxic chemicals. For instance, white sugar that is eaten in tons around the world is now known to be a carcinogenic kind of has its own bad properties. Secondly, also, like you rightly said, it could not have enough nutrient to last that your body needs completely. You know, that you might be eating 2 square meals a day, but they are not enough. That you are going to require supplements, you are going to require to do additional lifestyle additions to take your body's nutrient levels to the optimum. And add to that, what you said at the beginning, I want you to help us understand that the importance of detoxes in this scenario, sir.
Yes, it is. Okay, there's one other thing I want to mention you about inflammation among Indian people. This is a pretty big predominant problem in India, is because of these grains, dal, all these dals and grains and things like that. They are highly inflammatory because this is called a lectin allergy. Lectin is a protein found in these grains. Unless you cook them in the pressure cooker, you are not going to destroy the lectin. And once they eat these dal and stuff like that, they are highly prone to inflammation. They have arthritis, inflammations, migraine headaches, digestive problems, things like that. So you must make sure you pressure cook these lectins properly. Otherwise, this is going to be a problem.
Also, I think from an Ayurvedic point of view, the diet that the Ayurvedic text really puts forward is not what we are eating today in India or many parts of the world. For instance, Ayurveda does not promote eating grains on a daily basis. Like
this is the perfect thing. Yes. This is what modern science has just discovered. Grain is not the best thing for you to eat. That's what the paleo diet also says, the same thing. So grain is a newcomer. So grain causes a lot of inflammation. So you need to stay away from grain.
So like for instance, you don't need to eat roti every day. You don't need rice every day. You could eat like a stew today, maybe a salad tomorrow, have a roti the day after, and a dal and a chawal the day on the fourth day. That is the diet that Ayurveda basically asks you to take. And the quantities also that we need to understand is today probably people need say 3 square meals a day, so many calories. so many, chapatis or so much bowl of rice or whatever, that is not an ideal diet because that is going to lead to more inflammation. Would you say something on that?
This is correct. Yeah, this so-called eating habits is a different thing. This is for South Indians, for example, are addicted to so much rice.
Yeah.
This is almost like a drug addiction because as soon as they eat that rice, the serotonin, tryptophan and serotonin, the neurotransmitters go up, they feel better. So it has become a habit. It's like a drug habit. So in order to get rid of this, you can do this gradually by consuming less and less, just like de-addiction, as you can call it in drugs. So that will help because this grain problem is the big thing in India now. So not only that, there's another problem eating rice, let me tell you. Rice is the only product, grain, that has highest amount of arsenic in it. Why? Rice is such a plant, a crop, it absorbs arsenic from the water, from the soil, from the air. So a lot of people who are eating this rice in South India, they have arsenic toxicity and that will disrupt many hormones within the body. So they have to be careful with eating rice. Rice is nothing but a highly addictive drug, almost like a drug.
So whatever we are calling as a standard Indian diet or a holistic kind of a full meal is basically going to add to our sickness quotient rather than our health quotient.
Yes, that's what exactly it's doing. Not only the chemicals in it, it is the biochemical hormonal effect of this, the food, the amount they eat,
Right.
and the concept of eating this older ancient system, they disrupted it. In India, in the ancient way of, there are several used to be curries and chapati, what do you call this, chutneys, and curd and yogurt and stuff like that. They are not doing the right proportion, the right way at all. They are just disproportionately high in one thing and low in the other. This is what's causing the problem. And for example, the meat they are eating, those meats, they're all contaminated from the environment. They got deadly hormones, antibiotics, the chicken, the fish got the mercury. Now the fish has got heroin in it and things like that, not let alone the mercury. So everything is contaminated now in India, basically. Very, very bad.
And I think this is very good. I mean, there's a lot of correlation. I can see so much discussion. I can actually spend the whole day talking to you. There's so much that that you are sharing is very valid information. Quickly, I want to add 2 points for you to help us understand is the concept of a detox, sir. I mean, because nobody nowadays, I mean, the idea of a detox is when you become ill, but the fact that average people also need to cleanse their systems is something that people don't really realize so much. Would you help us understand that?
Yes, in order to, a detoxification is removing the toxins from the body. But the question is, a medical doctor will say, well, you already have the kidneys and you already have the stool, digestive organs, they are eliminating toxins. Why worry about the toxins? The problem is you are being overwhelmed with abundance of toxins that are accumulating in the liver and in your fatty tissue and things like that, that are not going to be secreted by the regular mode of, these are called emunctories. Emunctories means kidneys and our saliva and things like that. Some spirit out, certain drugs, some toxins you can eliminate, things like that. So every organ, there's a liver detoxification. For example, the glutathione way, how to liver the hepatic metabolism. And there's the kidney detoxification, how to get rid of the toxins from the kidney. And so many organs, every organ has its own detoxification pathway. And there is several ways of doing this. This is important. Just don't rely upon natural elimination of toxins. Each particular toxin has its own way of binding to it and chelating and getting rid of it. So this is a very important aspect of the detoxification.
Fantastic. And any thoughts on these concepts like intermittent fasting or all of that? Any thoughts on that?
The intermittent fasting is a powerful way of autophagy, to get rid of the dead material from our cells.
Yes.
So the best way to do that is to eat the evening food around 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And the next morning, do not eat breakfast. Chai or stuff like that is okay, but now no breakfast until lunch. That way, this intermittent fasting controls the hyperinsulinemia, controls the diabetes, obesity, and promotes the autophagy and overall health of the individual organisms. This is very, very important, intermittent fasting.
Because because from the Ayurvedic perspective, Ayurveda probably asks you to eat probably 21 full meals in a month, if I'm
I
not
see.
wrong. Because they would not allow, ask you to eat 3 square meals a day. That's not the concept even in the Vedas. They don't believe in that. On the other hand, they believe in the 7 days of a week are broken down between food categories. I mean, what we have is called as leafy vegetables, fruits, semi-cooked food, cooked food, and categories of even grains, vegetables are segregated, and the 7-day
Yes.
meal program is made. Out of that, there are also days when you don't consume food that is tasty. I mean, you have to eat foods that are also not going to be very pleasant for taste. For instance, there are going to be pungent foods, there are going to be bitter foods, there are going to be saltless days where you don't eat salt at all. And there are going to be only 1 day or 2 days in a month where you are allowed to eat sweet food, wherein
I see.
foods that have a sugar content in them. And that is how we have also been able to learn about diet. That's how we have been taught about diet as well. But that is something that 99.9% people don't follow nowadays, because they feel A, it is obsolete, outdated idea, or B, too difficult and unnecessary to follow. So something on that?
Yeah, this is a very highly sophisticated concept written in the ancient times, and even the modern scientists are unable to figure this out. They are just learning all these things from Indian Ayurveda. So this is a very deep, thought-provoking method of eating food and cooking food and consuming it. This is a big science. This even nutritionists do not know about all these things, but they are trying to learn, catch up with all these teachings, and they are trying to use in the universities now. They are doing research and they are trying to catch up with this new concept from Ayurveda.
Because like you mentioned about microbiome, I had read an article that about this dietitian who said that it is mandatory that you have one fermented food item daily. You know, that you need to have one item that is made from after fermentation in your daily diet to help keep your gut microflora intact. You know,
Exactly.
and then he went on to suggest all the wines and all of those things. But in Ayurveda, there is a simple fermented food that we eat daily called as the buttermilk, which is equally fermented and has a lot of medicinal value that dietitians don't seem to follow. And that buttermilk is in the Ayurvedic text. It is said it is something that was available to the gods, and the gods gave it as a gift to humans. That's how potent it is supposed to be. That it was handed over as a divine gift. So in a metaphorical way, of course, they talk about it from a metaphorical way, that to prove its importance in a daily human diet, because of its its ability to enhance the microbiome and keep the microflora intact. That is something that also is very valid, sir.
Very, very true. Yes, very, very true.
And finally, I would request you to help us understand the future trends of healthcare. So what are going to be the future trends? Do you see it shift towards a new modality, or do you think that the world is now going to fall deeper into the abyss as it is right now?
The future thinking is we need to grow everything organic, eat organic, lead a holistic life, stay away from these toxins, and build up our immune system, lead a good spiritual life. This is what we need. We don't need new drugs, new vaccines, and look into some other external influential things to improve our bodies. That's not what we need. We have inherent capacity, prana shakti, the vital force is so powerful that it has the ability to heal our body if you nourish it properly. There's a saying that you do not fertilize a tree, you nourish the soil. So the tree knows what to do. So it is a question of nourishing ourselves. It's all on nutrition. That's a holistic life. Then we should be all better.
Fantastic, sir. I have sent you some information on this concept called Agnihotra that we do.
Yes, I saw that.
I'll send you some more data on that, because like you mentioned about the micronutrients that are necessary for the human body. We have tested the Agnihotra ash, the cow dung ash, because that is why the cow is called a Kamadhenu, because the ghee and the buttermilk that we get from the milk, from the cow is very potent for human health. But the ash from the dung that is burned has 92 trace elements in it, sir. From the
obviously it does, yeah.
And
I believe it.
We have tried to measure it. We have not been able to do it completely yet, but we have seen that up to 3 to 4 grams of that ash is equivalent to 60% of the RDA specified micronutrient value, sir. So taking like 3 or 4 grams of this ash daily is going to add a lot of micronutrients to our daily diet. Would you want to help us understand?
Yeah, it's micronutrients that we're talking about, the magnesium, copper, zinc, selenium, and all these things.
Yeah.
These are very much needed for our bodies, for antioxidant protection, for anti-inflammation. And what you are saying is basically all those macro minerals are very essential. That is what you are saying makes full sense. The way you are obtaining it one way or the other with the cow dung, that's a new concept to me, but it makes sense.
Because that's why I think the animal was considered very important, because the animal can give you so much. The milk can be derived right up to butter from milk, curd, and buttermilk, and so on, right up to ghee, for instance, not butter but ghee. And the cow dung is used in the farming for agriculture, for organic farming, for Panchagavya Krishi, and
Yes.
also for Agnihotra, which is going to not only heal the atmosphere but give you so much medicinal value in the ash itself.
I see. It makes sense.
So there's so much that the animal gave. That is why she was called the Kamadhenu and held in high esteem, not because of some magical value or some supernatural superpower she had, simply because the way nature built her was so much essential for human life. You know.
Yeah, there are certain patents made from cow's urine.
Yes.
Because it has some prostaglandins.
Yes.
These are highly anti-inflammatory and highly arresting the cancer, and also in some cancers, prostaglandins. That's why there were some German scientists had some the so-called patent from these animals, urines and stuff like that.
I'll have some more data sent across to you, sir, on Agnihotra that we have been doing, because we are in the clinic that we have in the ashram. We are doing something with which is a blend of Agnihotra, Ayurveda, yoga, and now we want to add a lot of other alternative medicines, medical sciences as well, and create a larger treatment modality, larger treatment protocol to basically create what you have been saying as an optimum health. It will not be to fight a disease. It will not be to particular illness. It will be to take the body through its own original prakriti.
Exactly.
Using all the sorts of sciences that you have mentioned. And we would love to learn more from you, sir. If you are kind enough to give us this time, I request you to provide us more time so that we can go into depths of each of these concepts like neurogenomics, epigenetics, and so on, so that we can build a larger collaboration and cooperation, sir.
I will do that. Yeah, that's what we should do. In each individual topic, we should talk and see how they can improve their health with following these simple methods.
Yes, sir. Fantastic. So I will just bring in Dr. Rajiv here because he has to say something to say. Dr. Rajiv, Dr. Reddy has given us fabulous information that is going to be eye-opening for, I think, hundreds and thousands of people who are going to watch this interview. And it's going to add such a new dimension to medical healthcare in its core. I mean, the way healthcare has been targeted in not only this country but worldwide is a completely 180 degree different view from what Dr. Reddy is saying, and he is somebody who's delivering results. So, what would you have to say on that, sir? Because you are a medical doctor yourself, so that's why.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Purushottam. Vishwas.
Yes.
It was almost you were echoing my thoughts. It was as if I was sitting in Hyderabad and you were speaking in California. The same thoughts. Okay, I am basically a rheumatologist and an immunologist.
I see.
And I totally agree with you that inflammation is the basis of all diseases today.
Exactly.
Atherosclerosis is an inflammatory disease.
Yes.
It is no longer the foam cells and the cholesterol getting deposited and somehow the plaque getting ruptured.
Exactly.
And I recently attended one seminar on cholesterol, and one of the speakers went to the extent of saying that the biggest scam of the 20th century was statin.
Statin, yes.
What about insulin, sir?
What is it?
What about insulin as well?
Insulin,
Insulin also, both insulin and statins, they said they were the biggest scams of the 20th century. And actually, what I am looking forward,
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to work with you, Vishwas.
Acha.
And we are planning at Akkalkot, Shivpuri,
Hmm.
an integrated medicine center
Where?
in where Dr. Purushottam stays
Oh, near in Maharashtra. Yeah.
in Maharashtra.
Hmm.
It is in Sholapur district called Akkalkot.
Acha.
They have got about 200 to 300 acres of ashram there.
Right.
And I have also, as a rheumatologist, reached a dead end.
Acha.
In every disease, I have reached a dead end. Rheumatology, we give up to biologics, then after that, we don't know what to do.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Now we are reversing all these rheumatology conditions, rheumatoid arthritis and everything. Reverse.
Now, even now, osteoarthritis has become such a huge problem.
Yes.
And hardly 0.1 to 0.2% of the people in India can afford a knee replacement.
I know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that also has got a shelf life and controversial. Again.
Yes. Yeah. I'm preventing this knee replacements by injecting ozone, prolozone, PRP, platelet-rich plasma into the
Yes,
knee
good.
joint, and that completely prevents it from having any further damage.
I mean, what I would like to do is for every disease, we will make out a protocol.
Yes, there is a protocol. Yes.
Okay, which may involve all the three branches of medicine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like allopathy, Ayurveda, and naturopathy.
Exactly.
Okay, and you when are you visiting India again?
As soon as they lift the restrictions.
Oh, that's so good. So then we can make a trip to Shivpuri.
Yes, I want to go. I want to help.
Yeah, along with Pramod.
Yes.
And then we can. You should help us. Setting up the institute there and giving us the protocols and be the mentor.
We will do that.
Okay.
If you follow the find set acronym,
Yes,
I
the
told
find set
you,
I have written it down.
FINDSPT, you can apply that in every disease. You can completely reverse every disease.
Of course, that is such a nice and you have actually given us a ray of hope.
We already have a clinic here, and we get people from all over the world who come to attend the detox programs we are providing. We are providing Agnihotra and Ayurveda yoga-based residential retreats. So these are 7-day retreat, 21-day retreats, and 30-day retreats, which people attend from around the world. People, we are getting audiences because Agnihotra is a global concept, and people come from every part of the world to attend these retreats here. And
we can bring a revolution.
Yeah,
we can bring a revolution. We can show the results. It's going to be an evidence-based practice of natural, the holistics.
Yeah.
It is going to be an amazing revolution in India. It's called the truth-based medicine. This is a revolution by itself.
We should do this because at the end of the day, that's what we have been teaching for the last 40-45 years, that we need a different mindset. We need a different attitude to life. We need a different lifestyle. Not only a lifestyle in terms of different food choices, but a complete different attitude of looking at life. And that's what exactly you rightly said in the end, sir.
And I'm also a California certified organic farmer. I know how to raise organic farming.
Yeah.
There are certain new ways of doing this. This is called permaculture.
Yes,
It
sir.
is based upon Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy gardening and a highly intensive French gardening. I'll show you how to do, how everybody in India can raise their own food in the backyard.
So we are already setting up a hydroponic and a permaculture based farming plot here in the ashram, sir.
That's very good.
We are in the process of doing that, sir.
Vishwas,
Yes, sir.
Pramod has shown me the photographs of your 500-acre ranch in
Near Bongir.
No, in US.
Oh, in US.
Okay, and we have gone to your Bongir farm.
Acha.
And I have enjoyed swimming there.
Yeah, I want to develop a small clinic over there too.
Yeah, true. That's quite good. But another thing is, I totally agree with you regarding the role of vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Okay, vitamin D is the booster of the innate immunity.
Exactly.
But it suppresses the adaptive immunity. Okay, that is a good part because in most of the rheumatology cases, the B and T cells are hyperactive.
I see. Yes.
Okay, because they produce the plasma cells, and the plasma cells produce the antibodies and the immunoglobulins and the cytokines, which we try to block by using biologics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and another thing is your zinc and magnesium that you give. I have found that zinc and magnesium supplements are excellent in osteoarthritis
No, that's true. Yes.
because glucosamine doesn't enter into the joint. It cannot. It is such a huge molecule. I have seen it.
Yes.
It cannot pierce through the synovial membrane.
I see. I see.
Okay, there is no way they say that it enters into the fluid. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And also regarding epigenetics, I work with RNA inhibition actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I found out that too much fooling around with the nature is extremely dangerous. Okay, it is best way to have a natural approach, which takes care of so many things. You see, Dr. Purushottam once told me. I asked him, how does the haldi work? Does the curcumin as a part from haldi, is it active? He says no. Haldi as a whole works. But curcumin is one of the active ingredients which
Yes.
people give. That is why
Yeah.
it doesn't help them actually.
Yeah, turmeric
Haldi
is
as a
got
whole
totally
should be
curcumin.
given. That is one
Yes.
thing. And I was regarding Somalia, what you said, I have worked in Somalia actually. I made about 8 trips there.
Hmm.
And I normally give them vitamin D supplements whenever I treat them for any disease.
Acha.
And almost they are now treating me as a demigod there.
That's good. Yeah, yeah.
And regarding melatonin also, I agree with you. Okay.
Yes.
See, melatonin sets the biological clock.
Yes.
Okay. And so in the night when the melatonin levels go up, that is what stimulates the HPA axis,
Exactly.
the hypothalamus pituitary and the adrenal axis.
Yeah, relaxes. Yes.
And that is how our normal steroids are secreted, which fight the rheumatoid or any rheumatology problem.
Right.
But as with age, since the melatonin levels come down,
Yes.
the HPA axis gets deranged.
Exactly. You're right.
And we are not able to produce the required amount of steroids that have got a optimum. Steroid is not bad,
Yes.
but it has to be optimal.
Yes.
Not like what the most of the doctors write. For everything there are steroid, that is bad. It is a double-edged weapon. It can kill, it can also cure.
Mm-hmm.
I think what also Dr. Reddy said was a very beautiful point. He said, instead of trying to cure the body, try to create an environment where the body can cure itself. I mean, This is what I think Ayurveda believes in. When we say everything that the Ayurvedic medicine and its entire approach of the entire faculty is to create Prakriti back, to create the body's original God-given, nature-given constitution back, and then let the body do its own work. I think that is what Dr. Reddy has been emphasizing, that everything that he is trying to do there with all of his sciences that is integrating there is basically to create the body's original structure back so that the body can start healing itself. I think that is a very important point.
I mean, Vishwas, you said that actually up till now, my concept regarding Pitta was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Pitta is not acidity.
No, it is not.
Pitta is inflammation.
It is.
Okay. So this is almost a path-breaking revelation you have made. You can have a food that has got anti-inflammatory properties.
Exactly. Foods do have anti-inflammatory properties.
Okay.
The alkaline food concept, right?
No, which can be tailor-made, like in personalized medicine. Now the concept is personalized medicine.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. After the genome mapping has come. So now I feel food, it cannot be cooked as the same for everybody in the family, like what you are telling.
Yes.
See, you may have a Pitta personality, the other may be having Kapha personality, or the other three.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually, we should work more on this food Pitta, not acidity, food Pitta inflammation.
Yeah.
Inflammation, yes.
Also, I think if I may add here, I think from the Ayurvedic perspective, the only food item that Ayurveda says everybody can eat is payasam. is this rice, milk and jaggery preparation,
Like
that-
kheer.
like kheer, but rice kheer that is eaten a lot in southern India,
Yeah, payasam.
which they say is something that everybody can eat because it is all right for each prakriti, you know.
I see.
It is balanced for each prakriti.
Balancing.
It's a balance for all the three doshas. Every
I
other
see.
food then has to be tailor-made to your prakriti.
What an amazing concept to Ayurveda, huh? Based upon those three doshas, all diseases can be adjusted and treated. It's
Yes,
just like a Clark, Watson and Clark said, A,
Yeah.
T, C, G makes up the entire DNA, 4 combinations of only 4.
Yeah.
Out of these 3, they can treat any disease by balancing it correctly. Amazing concept.
Actually, Vishwas, you will be surprised to know
Hmm.
that our Rishis, Munis, and Ayurveda people did a lot of research on pharmacokinetics of the milk.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. And they found out that Dr. Purushottam told me that the best time to take milk is in the afternoon.
uh-huh.
I mean, they found out what the pharmacokinetics and they found out when it is the best time.
Oh my goodness.
So we are so routinely used to having a glass of milk before you go to sleep.
That's a bad habit.
That's a bad habit.
It's a bad habit.
I
Look
mean,
at the concept of ghee, clarified butter, how they made the concept. It is such a useful thing for memory that they could memorize all the verses of the Vedas for so many centuries without written concept at all.
Yeah.
Without ghee, that would not have been possible.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know why the West went so much against ghee.
Because they wanted to sell olive oil, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
They fooled the Indians. Indians are afraid of ghee. They
Yeah.
don't know nothing about ghee.
My whole childhood, I have been eating ghee, but last 20 years, I was not eating. And now
somebody
again, for
had
the last 5
extra-
years, I'm eating.
Somebody had extra tons of olive oil lying around somewhere, sir.
I mean,
Organic ghee is the best.
Please, sir. And any last thoughts on these concepts of angioplasty and all of that? Anything, sir, Dr. Reddy?
These all will be laid aside pretty soon. Nobody will worry about all these things. These are all phony, unsubstantiated things invented by the West. They don't have much scope at all in the future. Once this new revolution takes place, now all these things will be, just completely down the drain.
I tease my cardiology friends. I call them plumbers.
Yeah, that's what they wrote a router. That's what they do.
they just clean up the job. But okay, sir, it may be a good option only when it is an emergency. Okay.
Hmm.
But that has been
Calcification,
misused.
yeah, calcification in the arteries is the 99% it can be done with vitamin K2. This is
Yeah,
right here,
vitamin
vitamin K2.
Yes,
Vitamin
yes,
K2.
Nice.
Amazing stuff. It can improve the ejection fraction of the failing heart. It is now they are using in many cancers. K2 is the best thing for the arterial vascular problems, arterial vascular problems.
Nice. Any thoughts from Mr. Mahendra? He's with us also.
You have to unmute him.
I am trying to, but I think he has.
I have unmuted myself.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Sir, any
Can
thoughts
you
on the
hear us?
present, information we have got?
Yeah, I could. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, there are one or two takeaways for a common man like me. One thing I want to do for myself. The important thing is I wasted my life of 20 years of not eating ghee. So I had to start it immediately. The other thing is throw away all the cooking pans from my house
Yes, sir.
and
Yeah.
spending more time in the open sun. Maybe spending about half an hour to 45 minutes walking in the sun, whether it is summers or winters. Yeah.
That's number
These are
one.
three
that's
things
needed.
which I should do for myself.
Yeah,
This is
take the
takeaway I
shirt
have
off,
from this meeting.
exposed to the sun.
Yeah,
Take
that's
the
right.
shirt off.
And what I feel about the doctors,
Yeah.
as a practitioner doctor, I think you should isolate yourself from a powerful pharma lobby, which is
Yeah,
very
correct.
powerful. They try to. I think if that happens, I think 50 or 60% of the problems in the human health will be solved. But that will not happen so easily. So, that is my view. That is what I could get from the discussion we had.
Even simple things like sir said, there was also Teflon. I mean, Teflon is such a carcinogenic product but that we are using it on a daily basis just to cook our food. We are cooking
Exactly.
food, literally, we are cooking poison-laden food in a poison-laden vessel. I mean, what more can we do?
Immediately
we
after
proud
this,
about it
this
that
session, I'm
we
going to
have
throw
a
all the
Teflon.
hits I have in my house.
Yeah, the vapors that come out of the Teflon coated pan
Yeah.
are so toxic. In my veterinary practice,
Yeah.
at least once a year,
Yeah.
I used to see expensive $10,000, $15,000 worth of parrots they have in the living room when they are cooking in the kitchen. They used to bring their parrot saying, "Doctor, my parrot is dead." The first thing I asked them, "Were you cooking in a Teflon coated pan?" They say yes. So the fumes go to the parrot, it'll be dead in a minute, and then that's it.
Yes.
That's how toxic it is.
That's how toxic it is, my goodness.
That's how toxic the Teflon coated pans are.
And we are using it as a non-stick revolution.
Exactly.
It would be better to have sticky food than eat that food. Nah?
I mean,
Exactly,
people felt they are very modern when they use the Teflon coated utensils.
I mean, that's how it is sold. That's how the packaging is done.
Yes.
I mean, like sir is also saying, everything, all the pre-cooked food that we get, all the nutrition bars and the health bars and all the protein bars, all of that, the so-called protein powder, everything is laden with so much chemical in it. I mean, I just saw, if you check at the back of the protein bars, they're full of maltodextrin, which is a extremely poisonous product.
Highly contaminated products. Yes.
But that's how the industry is. Everything, I heard a dietitian say, everything that is ready to eat is poisonous. Let's just understand that way.
It is processed. Yeah. It is like eating somebody's vomit, they say. Processed food. Never eat a processed food.
Never eat processed
You have to
food.
put it
Never
in your kitchen.
Fantastic. Any last thoughts, sir, before we end the session?
No, I really enjoyed it. I would like to come visit. When I visited India, Hyderabad, I would like to go to the Pune, what you're talking about, those areas you're talking about.
Yeah, we are happy to
Yes,
have you
sir.
with us.
I really want to be associated with you and do the best of my ability to spread the knowledge around.
Fantastic.
Vishwas, I want to say that today is just the beginning,
Yes.
okay, of a lifelong relationship we will have.
Yes, we will definitely.
And after you come to Hyderabad, you, me, and Pramod, we will go to Shivpuri. Okay, I will take you.
Yes, we will go.
Please.
Okay, it is about 4-hour journey from here, 5 hours.
Not bad. Okay.
Okay, and of course, Dr. Purushottam will take good care of you.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
sir. You are
yeah.
coming home. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for all the beautiful information. Thank you for all the eye-opening ideas. And I'm just going to count days till you guys actually come down, because there are millions of people out there who need this information. Millions of people who are eating bad food, getting ill. Millions of people who are ill, getting worse, eating bad medicine. And this information is much needed, not only from a medical perspective, but from a humanitarian perspective as well. Because the world deserves to live a happy, healthy life. And if we have an opportunity to do that, I think it will be great service to the divine, great service to mankind itself.
I
Thank
have
you
got one
very much.
last question.
Please.
Sure, bolo, Raju, bolo.
Vishwas,
Yes,
is
sir.
it possible that we can combine the allopathic medicine, the Ayurvedic medicine, and the naturopathy?
That is integrated.
You mean, what do you mean by combine? The drug itself?
No, the approach should be wherever feasible, case to case.
Yeah, that's what the integrative medicine is all
That's what he's
about.
been doing.
Yeah.
Yes. In appropriate situation, you have to use one of the others to make sure which is more optimal for the human health promotion. Yes.
So once you come to India, we can sit and make protocols for that actually.
That's what we should do. Each individual condition, how to
Yes.
do it,
Yes.
and how to execute the order and things like that. Right. Yeah. We'll work
Brilliant
out.
information. Brilliant information. Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Thank you, Pramod ji, for introducing us to all of the wonderful speakers. And I think I don't know, I should check. There's many comments, suggestions, questions coming up, but I think we are overshot our time, and Dr. Reddy is, I think, is way past his bedtime there. So thank you, sir, for giving us this wonderful opportunity, sharing all this information with us. We would love to have you with us. We would love to discuss more with you and learn more from you, and collaborate for a larger cooperative model in the future, sir.
Okay. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, and see you soon, sir. Namaskar.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. Thank you, Pramod ji.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.